Okay, so here's what $60 worth of car from Grays Online looks like. Now, when I got the car, or when I first bid on the car, I didn't realise that the driver's window was broken, and I have a sneaking suspicion that that was probably done after I won the bid and was on the way to come and pick it up. It also had a really badly flat tyre, which surprisingly, with a bit of finny leak in it, is holding a bit of air. So, as you can see, she's a little bit rough and worse for wear. There's some dents in the body there. The paintwork in general is pretty shocking, but that's all something that we're going to try and sort on this channel or on this build. I think somebody has thrown some brake fluid or some form of paint stripper on the bonnet there. As you can see, the bonnet itself doesn't want to shut. That's another little thing that we can fix up. But just in general, this car was pretty much ready to go to the wrecker and become spare parts. So let's see if we can bring it back to life and hopefully go racing with it. So I've just driven the car for the first time, and basically the second I got it, or after I got it started, because the battery's totally cactus in it, was able to jump start it. Within about 5 metres of pulling it out of the garage, I could hear that something is not right in the rear end at all. At first I thought it might have been a wheel bearing, but it sounds like it might even be a tail shaft bearing or something like that. But that's all part and parcel for buying a $60 car. So hopefully I can show you how to fix those issues, and we'll get it running as cheaply as possible. Something that I've just noticed too since I've got it out in the daylight, and it wasn't actually in the description for the car, and I don't know if the camera's going to show it, but it actually looks like there's quite a bit of hail damage in the body. Again, I apologise if my awesome video camera doesn't pick up on it, but something I've always wanted to try doing is a little bit of paint and panel work. And as you can see, the paint is far from show quality. So yeah, somewhere along the lines of this build, I'm going to try my hand at some paintless dent removal, show you guys how it's all done, and I'll also give a crack at something I've always wanted to do, is spray a car from start to finish, the whole lot. And again, the whole premises of this build is to try and go racing for as cheap as possible, but there's no reason why we can't try and throw some paint on it in that process. So one of the first things everyone said to me when I showed them how much I won the car for is it ready for the scrapyard, or why was it $60? Now, I'm not 100% sure on that. I think I just got lucky, because I've been throwing silly bids on cars on Grays for probably the better part of 2 months. And when this one came up, when I first got the email, I was in the middle of doing something and squinted and saw that it said what looked like $590, and nearly had heart failure thinking, did I pay that much for this car? But I think it was just luck of the draw. There are a lot of cheap cars on there, but it's one of those things, I guess, if nobody else sees any value in it, or probably this one because it did look a little bit rough, it was passed up. But for $60, I mean, we've already bought a couple of parts, the stuff that we're going to do today. So the tail light and the boot's fairly tidy. There's a lot of muck all up in here, which will all be cleaned out. And interior wise, considering I was expecting it to have all sorts of horrible things in it, but the back's relatively clean. There's the window that we're going to be changing on the driver's side. Again, when I rocked up, I didn't know that the driver's window was broken, but I was able to source one at a wrecker locally for $62, and this missing trim panel as well, which surprisingly is quite hard to get, but it was only about $29 at a local wrecker. The front seat's fairly tidy. My front seats are fairly tidy. Now, the cool thing about the RS is it's got the same seats as the WRX. So to begin with, we're probably only going to run this car at track day events and super sprints, just while we work out a budget on what we're going to do with things. But the front seats are really good because you can actually run a 4-point harness through here. So what happens often when you have a normal seat, you try and run it through where your headrest comes in and the harness is forever coming loose on you, whereas these ones I can probably mount it into the base of the seat through the factory bolts and pretty much have a track day ready seat well, we already have the harness, so for free. So she's got 211-ish thousand Ks on her, and the check engine light is on, but we'll throw my scan tool on later on and see what's wrong with her. There's no cracks or anything in the dash, so people who know me know I'm pretty fussy for details, and this should all start to clean up quite nicely. Now the overall goal with this project is to go and do some proper door-to-door racing for as little as possible. So for that to happen, probably the only category for on-track stuff that would really be budget friendly is something like production car. So in standard form, this thing's got the 2.5 litre EJ25. Now I don't know a huge amount about the EJ25, but I do have a little bit of knowledge on the FA20, which is sort of an evolved version of this in the Toyota 86 and the BRZ. But most of the basic architecture of the engine is pretty similar. So headers on the bottom, spark plugs in the side. So this seems to run pretty well. We're going to have to change the battery, and I'm thinking that it's going to be an O2 sensor, but any little mechanical issues on the way I'll highlight, and we might do a little video on them. So I think first up, the smartest thing to do is probably hit this thing all over with a pressure washer and see exactly what's hiding underneath it. But to do that, we're missing a driver's window and that little trim panel there, so water's going to come in if we wash it as it is. So we'll head back to the garage and I'll show you guys how to fit a window. Alrighty, so we got that trim panel switched over there. It was a relatively simple job. Pull the rubbers up, there was 3 screws either side, and took me about 10 minutes. So now onto this broken window. Alrighty, so got the window back in. As with most window installs or reinstalls that I've done, it was a bit of a pain in the arse to begin with, but it's in. It goes up and down. I'd wind it up and down, but the battery's just about dead, and it's 1:30 in the morning. So I'm going to call it a night. Come back in the morning, we'll refit the door trim and do the tail light. Okay, so here we are back again. It's a few days later. I've been very busy, but the window's in. It was a pain of a job because I didn't realise that there's little tabs in there that needed to be removed to be dropped in. But what we're going to do now is refit the refit the door trim, sorry. I'm going to get a vacuum cleaner in there and get rid of those nasties. Now, I'm not going to put a speaker back in it, probably because we're going to strip it completely eventually and make it a race car. So the radio will come out. The devil sends messages through the radio anyway, apparently. And the door trim will need to come back off at another stage too, because I'm missing these little clips and I haven't had a chance to order them yet. But anyway, we'll throw that door trim back on and we'll start on the tail light. Alrighty, so through a bit of trial and error, got the door card back on. I'm sure I probably didn't do any of it the correct way, but I'm learning as I go with this car. So ignore that it's grubby, it's just more to keep it neat and tidy while it's in the garage. So yeah, when we get those door trim clips in, we'll pull it back off and then I'll give it a proper clean down from there. Let's get started on the tail light. Alrighty, so the window's back in and going up and down. I do need to pull the door trim off because the little tab that stops it from going all the way up isn't properly adjusted on this side, and if you wind it all the way up it wants to smack there. Vacuumed all the glass out of the door, which was a nightmare of a job because it was all in behind all the little nooks and crannies, but look, she goes down nicely and she goes back up nicely. But if I close the door as it is, you can see it wants to fail about there, so I do this end down here and around the back. The tail light's all in. I think until I work out an exact direction for the project, I'm just going to put the cheapest parts possible to get on track. But between now and the next episode, I'll have a bit of a think about where I want to go with it. I'd love to go production car racing, but part of going production car racing is that I don't want to just be another number on the grid. I'd actually like to be semi-competitive. So I need to have a bit of a think about that. One of the cool things with production car is we could convert this to a WRX or an STI and run it like that, and it would be, you know, somewhere up there. It's probably not going to be a front-running car now because it's quite old, but it would be somewhere up there. But that's all for this episode. Thank you very much for joining me, and join me next time when I hit it with the gurney and see if we can breathe some life back into this thing.